handsome. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome back to another edition of our podcast, A Not So Quiet Place. I hope everybody is having an amazing day, and thank you so much for tuning into us once again. I'd like to firstly thank each and every single person for listening, liking, commenting, subscribing. We love the community that we've got going on. And today, as per usual, I'm with my co-host.
How's it, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. Thank you guys so much again for listening and being with us. Stay with us just a bit more. Okay, we'll give you that video that we're talking about, still in the works. But yeah, guys. So today's topic, what are we talking about?
All right. So today we are talking about self-love before moving into a relationship, guys, because So without further ado, let's get straight into it. We don't want to waste anyone's time. Sfundo, the first question is, how important is it to you to have a sense of self-awareness before deciding that you'd like to share your life with someone else?
That's my favorite question, honestly. When I thought about that, yeah, because I feel like I'm so big on when it comes to like being conscious of how I act and my emotions and stuff. So I feel like it's very important to be like aware of your shortcomings. Like we all have our own shortcomings, and we are constantly like working on them and trying to be like better people. So like I feel like, especially coming into a relationship, you have to be very much self-aware of what triggers your insecurities, of what triggers like little things like being angry and how you react to someone actually doing something that you don't agree with. So I feel like that's very important, to be like self-aware of those things such as anger and how you actually react to situations, because it's very important. Like before you even introduce someone to your life, you need to be aware yourself of how you
need to have introduced yourself to yourself.
Yeah, basically. To yourself, basically. Because it's very important. Like as much as we don't think about it until we actually get into relationships.
True.
And then we actually see your dark side. Oh snap! If you're conscious enough, you'll be like, oh snap! Wow. I have real insecurities in my life. That is
so true. I'm not as great as I thought I am.
Yeah, exactly. Because most of the time, for example, if you spend a lot of your time just being alone before being in a relationship, and once you get into a relationship, you find yourself like, oh snap, wow. I have this feeling of unease that I have when like the person that I'm dating does certain things, when they talking to people or like that, So now you find yourself in a situation where you're in a relationship, and now you're discovering certain things about yourself that you were not really fully aware of before you introduce someone to your life. Yeah. So what? And you?
That's actually so important. It's so important, because the thing you were saying, that you don't even know who you are until you have to deal with yourself with another person.
Yeah.
Because you can be all good alone at home, chilling with yourself, being in your own company, but until you introduce somebody into your own space and they probably annoy you in some manner, or they say something, or they trigger you, whatever the case may be, you really don't know who you are. And it's so important for me to be self-aware, even on a physical level. Be aware of, have STD checks, guys, before you enter into a new relationship. Have STD checks. Check yourself spiritually as well. And if you're going to say that you're somebody who practices traditional stuff, then before going into a new relationship, because you don't know who has been doing what with what. And as much as we want to shy away from these things, we live in South Africa. People use umuti against one another. So you need to be aware of those things and aware of yourself. And you also, let's say for somebody who's like me, who's empathetic, you need to be aware of that nature of yourself, because you're going to be dealing with people that gravitate towards you because you will help heal them, and you can only heal yourself. You can't heal another person. And as soon as you find yourself in that role, if you're aware of yourself enough, you'll understand that, okay, because of the way I am, I'll attract certain people, and how do I maneuver around that?
Sorry if I cut in. Like, you find yourself, like, on certain times, once you bring people into your life, they show you the person you've been hiding from.
Yes.
You know? Yes. So, like, that's the scary thing that you find. Like, you find, like, certain relationships that you have with people, they tend to show you to yourself. Like, this is actually you. This is who you are as a person, you know? The
more intimate you are with somebody, the more they can get under your skin.
Yeah.
Like, we disregard that. And if you're aware of yourself, we're not saying that no one is ever going to get under your skin. If you're aware of yourself, they will. That it's how you manage that. And
how you handle it, emotionally, on an emotional
level, you know. Being aware of yourself that, oh, okay, physically, I'm in this manner, I could work on that. Emotionally, this is who I am, I could work on that. Spiritually, this is who I am, I could work on that.
So this is like emotional intelligence when you think about it.
Yes.
Certain people, once you're in a relationship with them, they can't handle certain situations emotionally, so they act out. You know, we find ourselves someone actually like abusing someone because they don't really have that emotional intelligence to handle certain situations in a way that actually makes sense to other people without physically hurting other people or emotionally. Because hurting other people, it's not just a physical thing, it can be an emotional abuse thing,
verbal thing. It's a whole range, basically. And with that being said, what is self-love to you? Because I feel like self-awareness and self-love go hand in hand. What is self-love to you?
I think self-love is taking that time to know yourself, to know the dark parts of yourself, and being able to sit with those dark parts of yourself and ask yourself, how can I change them? But the thing is, when you ask yourself, you don't really have to answer yourself. You just let the feeling come. You let it all come. Because then you will find the answer. You don't really have to say it out loud. Oh, this is how I'm gonna change. Sometimes
it's personal.
Yeah, it's personal. But sometimes when you try to answer it yourself, it's mostly the ego that's doing the answering. It's not really your true self. It's not really your inner self. So we have to be. For me, self-love is being able to sit with those darker parts of yourself, being able to be alone to be alone, because there's a huge difference between being lonely and being alone.
Wait, can you give an example of something, like an example of what you were saying, like the questions that you ask but then you don't need to answer, like an example that you probably maybe experienced where you sat down with yourself and you're like, ooh, okay.
I would say like certain emotional things would happen. Say someone does maybe let's say someone in your life does in terms of an example, I'm really trying to think of a good one that would make sense, you know.
Or let me give an example. Let's say something that someone does triggers you. So ask yourself, why are you being triggered, instead of reacting to that situation? Because most of the time, our only go-to option is always to react. We don't really sit down and think about it. Maybe we sit down later on after we've reacted. So delaying a reaction and actually asking yourself, why is this actually bothering me? So wait, in a sense, sitting down with yourself and having your silence answer it for you would be, for example,
you let that emotion, you just be there, you just be present with that emotion, whether that's rage, whether that's anger towards a certain thing,
and then not say, oh well, they triggered me, that's their fault. Okay,
that's their fault.
Got it.
Because sometimes you do find situations where it's like people just like gaslighting you, but honestly, sometimes you just really do need to ask yourself, Uti, why am I being triggered by something so simple as that? Why am I being triggered by a thing where women are saying men are trash? 'Cause that's like one thing that triggers men. So why am I being triggered by something that says all men are trash?
Why are you internalizing
that? So maybe there is something that you feel like maybe I am doing wrong. So that's why maybe you sort of like internalize that and make it your situation. So being able to sit around with uncomfortable questions, whether they're about how the outside world, how things are reflected to the outside world, and how those things are reflected back to you. You know, so if you are able to sit with those questions, even if they are pretty much uncomfortable,
very much uncomfortable,
and being able to allow them to just be and be able to absorb that feeling of being enraged and just let it sink in, let it be there, and just I think that's where you actually find the realization as to where you go wrong, and maybe you change your behavior towards certain things.
And that in turn
that's
is
for me self-love. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for me, self-love, I honestly believe that, you know, the thing we do, we say, oh, self-love, self-made, I did it, you do it. That's the type of energy that we have, I think, in regards to self-love. But I think at the core and the essence, what we don't understand is that self-love is not for yourself. It is, but it isn't. Self-love is for other people. You can self-love yourself from the ends of the earth to back, but you're not going to do it and then sit in your bed alone at night. That's not how it works. You self-love yourself, so you better... Self-love is making yourself better for the people around you, for your friends, and more especially for your intimate partner. Like for your partner, if you're able to love yourself enough to quit unhealthy habits, because you can't tell me that, oh, I love myself, but every single day you're eating junk food. That's not self-love. That's setting yourself back.
That's indulging.
You don't care about yourself, and that falls a part of self-love, because I honestly believe that we are mind.
So you have to look at what you eat, how you feed your mind, how you take care of your body.
Because we're a mind, we're body, we're soul, and we are emotions. And I think emotion and soul is like slightly intertwined. Yes. It's slightly intertwined. So we can't say, oh no, self-love, and then
don't really understand that.
Not understand it, and then not really work on those three facets of yourself. So I feel like self-love is loving yourself for other people. It's service, it's community. That I honestly do believe that. So it's being of service, that is self-love. And you can only be of service if you add value. So now we go back to where you take care of yourself physically, you take care of yourself mentally, you read books, you get to learn yourself, you get to understand yourself, you get to, as you said, work on your traumas, sit with yourself. Because it's not pretty. It's not nice. Yeah. It's not the best thing to do. And sometimes you think...
Not on my aesthetics.
No, I go on my aesthetics. And sometimes we think that, our self-love is just loving yourself for a week and that's it. It's a continuous thing.
It's a continuous thing.
So I would say it's like even self-care routines. That's self-love. If you look good, you feel good, you dress good, you put in the effort to, if you walk into a room and there's like 10 people and you're the best dressed, you're a sight for sore eyes. And you smell good, you're a sight for sore eyes. And that's in a way being of service to other people. And if you add value to conversation because you read, because you take care of yourself, you watch the things that you watch, you're mindful of everything.
Of everything around you.
That's self-love. And I think the biggest part of self-love is also finding your purpose. Because once you find your purpose, I think purpose is linked to self-love. Once you really get to that, it all just works together.
Yeah.
And if you find your source, which is God, whatever and how you want to believe it, that, I mean, if God is going to be the product developer, you're the product, God has the manual. So it makes sense for you to go back to the source and go back to the God, the manual, and be like, okay, how am I supposed to work? How am I supposed to, even if you do it traditionally, if you do it spiritually. So for me, that's what self-love is. It's like a whole network around you, which makes you better, not for yourself, but for other people. But you always need to make sure that you are good. It starts with you. You can't be better for other people if all you add is nothing. That's a whole lot of nothing. So with that being said, as you're talking, it's not an aesthetic, because I mean everything is an aesthetic. Now I love aesthetics, like y'all know me.
But y'all better stop.
Now we got that. The idea of self-love on social media versus the idea of actual self-love journey, like the reality and the fantasy of it. What is it like? How could you explain that to us? Because we see so many examples of that, of like the reality of self-love and the fantasy of like self-love.
I would say the social media part, which they call self-love, I think it's an act of self-love. It's not self-love, it's an act of self-love. Yeah. So for me, I always look at it like that. It's an act of self-love. But when you look at it from a deeper level, there's more to it than just those aesthetics. But somehow those aesthetics sort of contribute to it. I would say they make you feel good. So I think that's beneficial for you, for yourself, and for how you feel about yourself, I would say. So,
I got it.
Yeah, for me, I've always looked at it like that. All those aesthetics and what self-love is to social media, it's more of an act. It's not really self. You can't really categorize it as self-love. It's an act of self-love.
It's an act of self-love, and you can't really. It's acting. Do you think it's like acting?
I don't think it's acting, because as much as you make an aesthetic out of it, you're still pretty much in the zone, and you actually like enjoying what you're doing at that moment, and you feel like it's beneficial to you and to your soul at that moment.
But maybe per se it doesn't address the real issues. Maybe
it doesn't show the gritty parts of self-love. It's sort of like glamorized, so it glamorized the whole journey of self-love, but that's not really what it's about. So most people are stuck in that aesthetics, and they call that self-love, but there's more to it than just the glamour that people show, the aesthetics.
Like you see somebody on a yoga mat and they say self-love. No shade to anybody, guys. Self-love the way you want to. But
what would you say is?
For me, social media self-love, as you said, it's an extension of, but it's not the true thing. And more recently, I don't know, maybe if it's because it's pop culture, the self-love I'm seeing being defined on social media is very selfish. It's a looking back to me. It's a me thing. I'm going to do what's best for me. And yes, self-preservation thing. And what's best for me most of the times isn't even a great thing. For example, self-love before getting into a relationship, people will be like, well, I'm going to do what's best for me. And that means dating 10 people and then collecting 10 different soul ties. But I mean, I'm being a savage, right? I'm doing what's best for me. It's self-love, savage, all that type of stuff, which works against you. And people don't understand that self-love is actually very difficult. It's very difficult, and it's making the hard decisions. There's so many things before that, even for example, you're saying the men are trash thing. I would find myself in a situation where, had I had any self-love, self-worth, or anything, I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. So I wouldn't have to be in that situation. I wouldn't have to say, oh, that man is so trash. I also need to take responsibility for putting myself in certain situations and accepting the consequences of that. And that's what self-love is, taking responsibility. And had I been somebody who at that time had knowledge of self-awareness, whatever the case may be, I would have been able to say no. Because self-love is being able to say no to a lot of things.
Setting boundaries.
Yes, setting boundaries that you would have never said no before. Because now you're aware of yourself. You're aware that if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 will happen.
Yeah.
So self-love is saying no is so difficult. People don't understand, especially if you're a people pleaser. Saying no is so difficult. And self-love, I think the social media version is, well, everything is about me and all that kind of stuff. And self-love is a lot of sacrifice. Yeah. It is a lot sacrificing so many things that you have loved before for better. Because I mean, as children or as young adults or younger versions of ourselves, we do so many things that we don't know that we're harmful. But as you grow older, you learn and you grow. And as you grow in your journey of self-love and you're trying to make yourself a better person before you even try to attract the type of person that you want in your life, because you attract what you are.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to tell me that you've been having failed relationships for the past 10 years, and not to say sometimes relationships don't work out. Granted, of course, they just don't work out because they don't work out. But if you're not going to sit down and look at that and analyze that and see that I have had some wrong in this. I have also played a part in this. Not all men are trash. Not all men deserve. It's because you have also played parts in that, and people don't want to do that. People don't want to sit down with themselves and explore your past traumas and really understand that if you grew up being, let's say, molested, let's say abused, which is very traumatic and it's very unfortunate, it's going to affect your future relationships. And that's what real self-love is. It's digging. It's the deep stuff. It's having to be consistent at the digging, at the deep stuff. And then once you find all those things, it's then replacing all the negatives that you used to do with positive now things or positive routines that you're going to add into your life to rewire your programming here, because you've programmed yourself your whole life with all these negatives. So now I need to rewire. And do you know how hard that is? Do you know how hard discipline is?
That's
consistency is? That's the dark part that social media doesn't show, because social media, all you see as well. I love myself. Let me go get a smoothie. Okay, but did we address 1, 2, 3, 4? That you just swat somebody back and forth? Like, you know? So that's how I would say the idea of self-love is a beautiful picture. It's like rom-coms. You know how rom-coms taught us about the idea of love, and then we grew up and you're like, yay!
It's not it.
It's not this. Which is why I think as a generation we have such a disorientated view of what love is. And my expectations are too, guys.
Different.
I have faith. Because of rom-coms and things that we grew up watching. I digress, but that's exactly what self-love is. People see this image and don't see the work behind it to get to the final product. So I think and it's just exploring, but the work is worthwhile. The work is definitely worthwhile.
It really is.
It makes you a greater person, and if you're a greater person, you can attract a greater person, guys. Trash does not attract trash. Period. Stop. Point blank. Well,
definitely,
and then with facing your demons. Have you faced your demons? Yes. Do you think? Are you facing them? Have you faced them? And
I think I have. And I'm continuously doing it, you know. I don't think it's like a one-time process. I think it's an ongoing process where you don't just become conscious in one day. You don't become self-aware in one day. It's an ongoing process where you have to constantly go back and check and recheck everything that you thought you knew, you know, everything that you thought maybe I've dealt with that toxic traits that I thought I had, but then you realize maybe I haven't really fully dealt with it. So it's a back and forth thing where it's an ongoing process also at the same time. So I think it's I would say that. I would say it's an ongoing process, but I am constantly dealing and going back,
How do you deal with that? What will you say to our audience? Like, okay, what's one tip will you say you're dealing?
I think first you have to start with like what you believe is like trauma in terms of how you grew up. I think that's where it starts. Where you stop like shifting the blame to like what your parents, for example, like they left me with those toxic traits and stuff. Yeah. So you have to stop shifting the blame and take responsibility, because now it's time for you to stop having anger towards anger and resentment towards like you. I would point to an example of a parent, because the majority of us would look at our parents and be like, you picked up certain things and now they sort of like embody who you are as a person now. So you have to first deal with those things that you believe are traumas, and be like, I'm old enough now to take responsibility for myself with those, and be like, I have to let these go, and consistently working on those. I feel like that's where you start. That's where it starts. Yeah. From there, then you start picking up things. Like, I feel like on certain things, we do find ourselves in relationships. So if you find yourself in a relationship and you find yourself having these feelings where you can't really be present in an emotional, intelligent way when adversity arises. So you have to learn now to be fully present when that happens, and be able to take care and be like, oh wait, what is that feeling that I'm feeling right now, and why is it there? And being able to have those uncomfortable conversations, and being able to express yourself fully when you have an uncomfortable feeling. I mean, that takes time. That takes a lot of time, and you have to consistently work on those things,
So it's a work in progress.
Yeah,
like
it's a work in progress.
Said, it's a man in the mirror. It's the man in the mirror, guys.
Yeah, and you?
With me facing my demons, I feel there's a whole list of things that I would say people should do that I've done. But other than that, for me, it's a work in progress as well. I mean, there's some things, as you said, that you don't know until you know. Until something happens, until it pops up. Yeah. So it's a consistent work in progress. But I will say, I am so proud of myself, guys. I'm naughty badge. I am that babe now. But for people out there, I would say facing your demons is firstly, as you said, pointing to yourself, working on your trauma. You can no longer, guys, blame anybody else. I feel like we're at the age where we are grown and we need to start taking responsibility. Yes, there are some things that have happened to people that are so unfortunate. The things that have happened to me that are so unfortunate, that I had lived in such a loop and a limbo for so long because I pointed to everybody instead of just taking responsibility and saying, you know what, this happened. And this is how I'm going to deal with it, and this is how I'm going to process it and move along with it, because I'm going to stay caged in this forever, and that's not going to help me when I want to start a healthy family, when I want to go into a healthy relationship, because an unhealthy me is going to attract another unhealthy person, and then it's just a continuous cycle. So I had to work on myself spiritually, I had to work on myself emotionally. Another thing that I always noticed myself is that I'm not somebody who I don't like umsindo. I don't like loud things or stuff like that, or having loud combative arguments. I don't like that, or debates. So I would always notice that as soon as it arises, or as soon as I'm having an interaction with somebody and I'm angry, that's when I'm like, okay, there's a problem here. That's always my first indicator that if I I don't like swearing. I don't swear when I'm talking to somebody on an intimate level. That's just not how I do things. But even if I add like a young dude, that's when I know that, okay, something is so wrong. So I've now had to learn to deal with those emotional outbursts so that I'm able to have proper conversations and explain my anger instead of just throwing F-bombs everywhere, which is something I didn't do, but I've probably done once. I've had to work on myself physically. That's also facing another demon, because I would be insecure as a person and say, oh my gosh, I don't have the big butts, whatnot. But I mean, work out then, so you're happy with your body. So when you look at your body, you don't feel insecure. Or if, let's say, your partner does leave you, you don't start looking at yourself and saying, oh my gosh, it's because I'm not pretty, it's because I'm not this. Know that you are good if only you are working on yourself and you're taking accountability. Sometimes you're not good because you're not, period.
That's true.
And then getting my money right, I think, is another way of facing my demons. Because for me personally, if I look good, I feel good. And to look good, I need to be dressing good. I need to be smelling great. I need to, all those kind of things. I need to have money in order to take care of myself and to take care of home and to make myself feel good. And if I don't have my finances straight and my financial knowledge in check, I can't do anything for somebody who wants to come in my life. I literally cannot. And I've noticed that a lot of men won't seriously start dating until they have their money in order. I've really noticed that with men, because they understand the importance of having your money in order. So that's dealing with the demon as well. And I did say removing soul ties, right? Have to deal with those type of things. And if you are, once again, somebody who's very traditional, then go the traditional route. If you want to get cleansed, go the traditional route and do that for yourself, because you don't know who is who in the zoo and who's doing what. And we can't be naive. We're at the age where we just cannot be naive about things. Things really do happen, and you need to be aware of those things. And one more thing, we're out of time, guys. We're trying to keep these podcasts as short as possible. But I was researching that according to your trauma, or not even your trauma, but things that happened to you or how you grew up, you get categorized in 4 types of attachment styles. So there's a secure attachment style, there's a dismissive avoidance, there's an anxious preoccupied, and there's a fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment style. So I'll tell everybody to go look at those attachment styles, see where you fit, and according to where you fit, they'll be able to say that, okay, you grew up maybe in a household where you didn't have attention. So now as a partner, you always want attention and you're always clingy, and you think that's cute. That is not cute. It's not cute. It's not cute. And as girls, growing up, we thought that it's cute. It's not cute. It's not cute. And I've had to learn through and go through all those things. So for me, that's what facing your demons would be. And I've had to face quite a few. I've really had to face quite a few, especially in the past few months. And it's been difficult, but it's been worth every single tear, every single researching, every single breakdown, because it's really elevates me to become a better person. And I believe that good attracts good, but also hurt people hurt people. So if you're still hurting people, you're a hurt person, and you need to do work on yourself. One last thing. Okay, we asked that question on Instagram, that after how many days do you move on? And no one person said 2 days.
That is not a relationship, guys. Come on.
Please elaborate. Spunda?
Thank you guys for listening. Hey, we hope you enjoyed having this conversation with us, and let's continue on our social platforms, on Instagram, on Facebook and YouTube.
Yes.
Comments under YouTube, guys. Please. We are listening. We are looking. We want to engage. We want to have these conversations and actually find solutions. find resolves, I guess.
Yes, definitely. I mean, as Finda said, we are listening, we are engaging. We love to hear your comments. We love to hear your feedbacks. You can even email us if you're facing a certain issue, a certain problem in line with the topics that we're having. Email us. We'd love to hear from you guys. It's been absolutely great, and thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us once again. My name is Pamela Viana,
and I'm Sfundum,
and this is a Not So Quiet podcast.
Cheers.
Goodbye.